All right. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Sorry for the longer wait. I had to do some stuff in the background still. So I went live and then realized that I had to do it. Hey Zeku. How's it going? Hey Jacob. Thanks for joining, man. How's the Sunday going? Well, I haven't done anything up until now. Because I had too much fun working on the Christmas tree last evening. Starting to really come together though. Yeah, good Sunday. Let me just put this on Twitter. How's your Sunday going? Do. Again, I should set this up to be automatic. Oh, nice. Working on the master designer file. That's awesome. Yeah, it's always handy to just have like patterns and stuff quickly build up. Hey, morning, Lloyd. No, I'm actually testing a new camera. So I'm moving away from the webcam that I had before, and now I use like a proper DSLR camera. So yeah, this is a new addition to my setup. I'm not sure about the positioning. I rather have it on the other side of my desk, but I'm still waiting for like a desk mount before I can try it. I need to reshuffle some stuff on my desk then. Yeah. I like it so far though. It's way better image quality. And also now I have a camera to use on vacations instead of using my girlfriend's. All right. So what I also realized is that there are still some questions that people asked for the podcast and that were never answered because we moved away from that because I felt like people had to wait too long on their answers. So I'm currently going through the backlog and I'm probably going to answer them at the same time as well, or like sprinkle them in here and there. So you might see like a really old question that you asked like a while back just pop up. All right. What's happening with music? It's like the beginning of a new song, I think. There we go. All right, let's dive into these questions. So the first question is from Ovier, but he asked this one last week, but then he had like an addition to it. So I just wanted to make sure that we answered it all, basically. Okay, should be good. Sorry about this. Just heck yeah. Hey y'all. Hey Hamish. How's it going, man? Okay. Anyway, let's finally dive into these questions. So, as said before, first question from OVA. What are some of the common questions to know and watch out for, even in the beginning stages of the interviews? Basically, the HR stage. And last time when we talked about this question, I was a bit confused because the beginning stage of the interviews is not the HR stage. So I think I gave like a really muddled example. So the HR stage is what usually happens like all the way in the end, because they talk about like your salary expectations, they talk about like when you can start, they talk about like if they need to help you with moving arrangements if you're moving abroad at all. So it's basically all the stuff that has nothing really to do with the job itself. It's more about like you moving there and potentially getting citizenship or whatever that can be. So the common questions first is salary expectations. That's probably gonna be the biggest hurdle for a lot of people. Just do your research and look at Glassdoor and see what they have on Glassdoor for like the average salary on there, and see if that matches up with your expectations from the get-go. And also look at the expenses that you can expect, like basically the cost of living. There's some really good sites where you can just compare the cost of living from your current place with the place that you're potentially moving to, because that's really important. Because you can look at a number and be like, oh damn, that's a really good number that I can get paid. But then if you have to give like 60 to 70% of that to rent, that's not gonna help you either. So make sure to check that. So we got salary expectations is the biggest one for sure. Your starting date, that's also like a big one for most students. That's going to be like as soon as possible, basically. Then what else? Let's have a think, right? It's been a while since I did an interview myself. Well, went through like the HR stage, right? So salary expectations, well, the moving information, like if you need any help, well, this is something that you need to ask for, basically. I don't think the company, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit too skeptical about that, but I don't think the company is going to put this forward. I think it's more of a question that you need to ask the company if you need help with moving arrangements, because some companies, they have a budget set aside to help people move places. And when I asked for that, we went from the UK to Berlin. We did like a move. My parents drove the entire way with like all the belongings that we had, but that meant that all the gas and like all the little things that we bought to get us from point A to B was all paid by the company. It depends on what you can use it for. I think some companies allow you to use it for maybe hotel arrangements or something like that, but it wasn't the case in this case. Maybe it changed in the meantime as well. And I also think we couldn't use it for like your initial month's rent or something like that. Hey Fran, welcome, man. Yeah, it's been good. The week has been good. And next week is going to be even better because it's going to be my last week at work. I mean, for this year, right? So it's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to the vacation. Yeah, so for people that are new to the stream, right? Feel free to ask any questions in the chat, but I'm going to go through the questions that are asked from our community first, and then I'm going to go through the chat just to to not confuse myself first, and then give the people in the community what is it, like a priority ticket, if you want to call it that. And I know that some people in the chat are also from the community, so it's not making it easy on me. Anyway, what are some of the questions that you should ask in the HR stage? Uh, yeah, what I mentioned before, right? If there's anything that the company can do to help you move, that is a big one. I would definitely ask that question. If the answer is no, then I mean that's the lowest bar that you can expect, right? But if the answer is yes, they might help you with like moving arrangements. They might even help you with finding your initial apartment, all that kind of stuff. I think that's also like an important one. Um, is asking for help with the initial arrangements, like the initial apartment hunt. Because in my example, um, I moved from the UK to Germany, but we didn't know how the market was, like what kind of rent we could expect. And the company was really helpful with that too, just like giving some recommendations, giving some companies that are trustworthy that you can just apply for. And in I think in some cases now they even help you get set up with like a temporary apartment or a period. And I think a lot of companies do this, by the way. This is not only the company that I work for. um, so make sure that you ask if they can help you at all with any of these arrangements. I'm not sure, there must be, this is also where maybe seniority comes in. I'm not too sure about that actually, but you should always ask. Always ask. Like, you cannot lose anything with that. So definitely ask that question if they can help you with moving arrangements. Um, I'm thinking, is there something else? I think like Pame Dominguez mentioned in the chat is do they have training programs for employees? Like that is something that you could ask in the HR part as well. Um, I mean, just basically any information that you didn't get or like are unsure of, or I still remember this part of. I think this was when I actually joined the company, so this wasn't at the application stage, but there were some questions about like having some handicaps or like long term diseases. This is more personal, right? But I had a question because I'm partially blind in my left eye, so that was like a question or like talking point for me, where I needed to ask them if that applies for something. But in the end, it didn't really matter. It didn't make a difference. So yeah, I think that's always like just good to answer for questions. Just basically everything that you're unsure about, just ask HR. Like they will happily help you. I hope this helps, OVA. So next question, and this is from Shubham. So this is quite a long one, so bear with me for a sec. I think we can even break this up into multiple parts. So I want to learn environment art, but I'm not sure where to begin. I know how to create props and weapons, both organic and hard surface. I want to create environments like For Honor, Demon Souls, Lord of the Rings, Assassin's Creed, blah blah blah. I like castles and related stuff, but the problem is that they're highly sculpted environments, and I don't know that kind of sculpting right now. Okay, so what should I do? Let's divide this up into like multiple questions, right? Um, so first question is, let me just split this up for a second. Let's move this over. Just organizing the questions in Notion. So I'm not sure where to begin, but it sounds like you're not beginning anyway. So you know how to create props and weapons, both organic and hard surface. That's a really good beginning. It depends on what you mean by that. Do you know like the full high to low poly pipeline? Because that's a really good beginning. But you want to create environments like For Honor and all that kind of stuff. Basically the AAA. Let's call it just AAA games. I really like castles and related stuff, but the problem is that they're very highly sculpted environments. Oh shit! Thanks, Tim. Thanks for the sub. Oh man, I still have that that original sound in there. I haven't done anything to that. So let's get back to the question, right? Like highly sculpted environments are really good to get into, but I think you need to change your perception a bit, because if you look at castles and all that stuff, there's not every brick or like every stone is not going to be sculpted individually. There's going to be a lot of reuse in there. There's going to be like a lot of tileable textures, a lot of trim sheets, a lot of basically like reuse of the different kind of rocks. So say you make like a kit where you have 20 uniquely sculpted stones, for example. You can use that for wait, I'm getting distracted. Jesus. Give me a sec. Let's see if I can turn down some stuff here. What's up with all these? Sorry guys. This is streaming beginnings. Okay. So anyway, so there's a lot of reuse in there, right? So you could you could sculpt like individual rocks. You could make like a kit of 20 rocks, so to say. And then you could reuse them over and over for the edges of buildings, for example. And if you don't know that kind of sculpting right now, and if you really want to do that, just go 100% for it. Because the thing is, like, if you make a portfolio that is good for the industry, but it's not what you want to do, then it doesn't really matter, because you're gonna get hired for what's on your portfolio, for what you're passionate about. It's not about what the industry wants from you. It's about what you want from the industry, basically. So if you really want to do like castles, medieval, that kind of stuff, and if that is like 100% your passion, just go full ahead on that. But yeah, that means that you need to learn that kind of sculpting. But it seems like you already know like a lot of the basics, which is really good. I would also, I think this is the second part of your question, right? Should I first learn how to create things like rocks, trees, etc., and then start approaching an environment? Or should I start creating a simple environment first that doesn't things sideways? I would first, because you wanna start learning sculpting, right? I would recommend you to start with rock sculpting. Just start with that. For example, trees you can get away with just using Pastry or like other downloaded trees for that, because that is like a specific role. You'll probably become like a foliage artist if you start specifying or like specializing yourself in that. Yeah, I would definitely say start with sculpting first. Start creating some beautiful sculpted rocks, and then just work your way up from there. If you see anything that's missing in your portfolio for like the stuff that you want to do for like castles, for example, you just keep moving up from there. Start with sculpting rocks, and then maybe go into like more tileable. So what I'm thinking now is just start with rocks first. So you would just sculpt like nicely unique rocks, then move on to like sculpting tileables and creating tileables with those rocks or stones that you made, because you're going to use those skills in that tileable, and then start combining the two so you can create like sections of castles and then you're probably going to use those things that you learned in the sculpting stage again for the roof tiles or the wooden doors. It just keep growing from that point on. Because I think a lot of people, myself included, like when we got started with environment art, it's all about like making the biggest thing ever, and then at some point getting so overwhelmed by it that you just give up. It's not about that. It should just be like taking it step by step. You're building a house brick by brick. So you just need to, yeah, work your way up slowly but surely. And I think if you do that, say, because you mentioned that you're thinking about applying for an environment artist job within 5 to 6 months from now. So you believe that you need to have at least 2 environments in your portfolio. I think it's a good deadline, but also have a plan B. If that deadline doesn't work out, because I don't know how much time you can sink into your projects, right? Maybe you can only spend like 2 like 2 hours a day or something on it, then that might not be a realistic deadline. But if you can spend like 8 to 10 hours a day on it, that's like totally realistic. But it's all about focusing on the right stuff that you want to learn. Focus on the bigger picture, especially when trying to create full environments. It's all about focusing on the bigger picture. If like one texture that you use in like a corner on the left doesn't look right, just skip it. It's all about the big picture. Having at least 2 environments in your portfolio is really good though. It's you shouldn't be aiming for one. You should at least have like a couple. Let's have a look at the chat, right? I got so oh god. I got so distracted by all the subs. Thanks, Raj, for the sub. Appreciate it, man. And thanks for all the distractions, guys. I properly lost track of what I was saying at that point. Oh, man. Let's have a look here in the stat. Because, yeah, Big Zeagle, honestly, when you're starting doing smaller projects, is way faster to learn new stuff. 100%. 100%. Just keep it small and focus on the learnings that you want to achieve with that project. That's how my project started too. Like most of my project is just like, what if I want to learn foliage? And that's my forest scene. And that's just purely because I wanted to learn foliage and like all the different ways that I could do it. Let's have a look. I think, okay. Winter in the voice chat, but with all the holidays incoming, we talked about pastries. Oh shit. I'm gonna answer that question later. I need to go through these questions first. I really hope that answers your question. It's a really big question, right? When we talk about like how to get started with these kind of environments. And it's a really complex question that we can break down into like multiple bigger questions too. But I appreciate it. Some good questions. All right. Next one is from Seku. How do you handle the frustration of feeling of learning too slowly? And how can you learn more efficiently? This is another really good question, right? But oh, hey. Hey, Beta Razor. Thanks for the follow, man. Appreciate it. Should make it more gender neutral as well. Keep saying man. But how do you handle the frustration of feeling of learning too slowly? And how can you learn more efficiently? So That's a really good question. I don't think there's anything that is that is I don't think there is something like learning too slowly. Like if you're learning, you're still learning, right? So I would definitely not see it like that, even though as at times it might feel like that, right? Where just you spend like 8 hours working, and then you get to the stage where you just look at those 8 hours, like what you just did, and you just feel like, you have achieved nothing. So it's a tricky one because you didn't achieve nothing, right? You're still learning. So I wouldn't really, I wouldn't, I wouldn't think about it too much. As long as you're still learning, you're doing a good job. How can you learn more efficiently though? It's it's being really focused. I know that this is like a really generic answer to it, but I think a lot of people just get distracted by a lot of stuff that's not important. So say if you need to pick your battles. So like we said before, if you know that you need to um, you have this goal of creating medieval castles, right? Like what are the components that you haven't learned yet? And just from that point on, just picking like smaller projects that could achieve or like get you there in the long run. So for this, it could be sculpting rocks as a starters, sculpting wood because you're gonna need wood for all the wooden doors and like all the frames that you're gonna have with medieval buildings. And then it's just like doing a little project for sculpting rocks, or it could even be like a stone tileable. A stone tileable that could be a texture that you just focus all your time on as like a small contained project, and is gonna teach you how to sculpt stones. That's like step one. And then you do the same thing. You make like a wooden a wooden trim sheet where you just really focus on like how to sculpt good wood, and that you can then also use in the project itself. So you're basically building the foundations for the environment with like smaller projects on the side. And that's usually how my stuff starts out as well. With like the project that I'm working on, for example, I was just working on like a wooden kit, like a trim sheet, and then it just well, I started from a concept with this one, right? But then it's the same kind of tactic, just breaking it down into its core components, really focusing on those components to begin with, and then just going to the next one. And how can you learn more efficiently? This is a really good question. It's highly personal because everyone learns in their own manners. So what I would say is try to find what works for you, because like something that works for me might not work for you. However, it's always like a stupid answer, right? If we talk about that, because it feels like such a half-assed thing. Um, but what I would say is, first of all, try to find music or something that puts you in the mood to create. Like sometimes that is like piano music. Like yesterday, I was listening the entire evening to piano music. Like Nils Fram has like a new album that came out, and I was just listening to that, and that just put me into the zone for creating. But sometimes it might also be like, I don't know, more electronic music, or sometimes it's podcasts. It depends um on the current mood, what you've been doing the entire day. Like there's lots of factors that go into it, right? But try to be aware of that yourself. Like try to focus on getting to know yourself first before you can just go purely to this, like, how do I become more efficient? Like it's all about yourself, and just try to get to know yourself. Next question by Zeko as well. When it comes to finding a job, is it worth specializing as a material artist, or is it better to focus on environment in general? That's up to you. It really is. Like, if you feel, because I know in your case you've been doing like the November stuff, and it was looking really good, making some really good progress there. And if that is something that you feel really passionate about, just go 100% for it. It's all about what you want to do. It's not about I mean, it's easier said than done, right? Because I want to say it's not about what the current openings are for the industry, because they always keep changing anyway. It's more about what you want to do, and if you're satisfied within the industry with what you want to do. So in your case, if you want to be a material artist, for example, then just go 100% for that, and just work towards getting in as an environment, as a material artist instead of environments. And it also depends on the kind of project that you want to work on, right? Because like if you want to work for like a AAA company, that's where you're going to see more specialization than you would normally see. But if you want to work for like a small indie company, for example, then you're going to have to wear many more hats. So that's where your focus has to be broader than just a material artist. So that comes into the equation as well. So keep that in mind. It's yeah, but in general, I would specialize for AAA, and then I would kind of generalize a bit more for indie studios. Yeah, Zego, no worries. Good questions here. Good questions. Oh shit, Derek with the sub as well. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. God damn it. Okay. Thanks, Seiko. Thanks for the sub as well. Appreciate it. When are the emotes coming? Oh, okay. I think in January it's time to have like an emote contest on the server or something. Create some wonky emotes. Okay. I got one more question from Lloyd, but this is a previous podcast question, right? So this might be like a couple of months old by this time, so I apologize, Lloyd. I apologize for it. Hey Oki, welcome to the chat. So, do you think collaborating with other artists for personal work should/could become more common thing in order to achieve that higher quality bar? Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. That's what we did with the challenge as well, right? And I think maybe this was a question that you asked before you started organizing the challenges too. Just to give some context, like Lloyd is the person that organized our first team challenge. So I think he kind of felt something stirring there, and he was just like, okay, let's take some action, let's make it happen. I definitely think it's a good idea, especially if you're all aiming to get into the AAA studios, like I mentioned before, and you have Seiko, for example, who wants to be a material artist, and then you have another person that wants to just focus on modeling and asset creation first. Then you could start to create this system where one person does the props and does the bake, and then the other person can take that over and do the materials, or the other person can create like the titleable materials first, or the trim sheets first, and then the other person can take that over to create like some reusable models from. There's I would definitely say like it could become a more common thing, but there are always going to be artists that are more to themselves, and I would even include myself in that, because sometimes it's really tricky, right, to find people that are as passionate as you in the stuff that you do. And this is something that I struggled with when I was coming up as a student, because I could never feel Like the people that were really good friends with me, or that I was really good friends with, were, well, to be honest, the same for me, were not really like the most pushiest students. Like I was doing a lot of stuff, but I wasn't really focused as a student. So yeah, I think it could become a more common thing, especially with the industry more specializing and specializing. I think it could. And that's why these challenges are really good for that, right? Where we can just come together as like a community and everyone pick the stuff that they want to work on. Um, Big Seagull, don't forget that a material artist, for example, that as a material artist, for example, you need to understand how your materials will be used. Something you can learn by doing environment artist work or just working with an environment artist. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If you have to go through like the entire environment artist or like environment art creation step, that's gonna take you a long time. Where within a collaboration, you could have the environment artist working on the environment as you're creating the materials for it. So, yeah, if you got some good people around you, just reach out for collaborations. I think it's definitely worth reaching out to them and getting something started like that. All right. So I think those are all the questions from the community, right? Let me make sure. Let me make sure. Okay, Discord chat is looking empty. That's good. Let me quickly double check if we got some anonymous questions. I don't think so. I checked before the chat. No anonymous questions. Okay, cool. So let's dive into the chat. Let's dive into the chat questions then. Hey Tim, you want to collab? Doing too much stuff, man. Too much stuff on my hands. I would love to at some point. Well, actually, we're already collabing in the last challenge. Like we're gonna create like a nice Christmas theme anyway. So technically, we are already collabing, right? Oh, that kind of collab? No, not interested, man. Not interested. Doo-doo-doo. Okay, Fran. First question. How was your week? And for this AMA, what would be a good salary for a mid-level 3D artist and senior? I'm talking about the minimum that you should be paid. It's fucking Coco shit, man. Anyway, what would be a good salary for a mid-level 3D artist and senior? Talking about the minimum that you should be paid. Oh man. Very good question. Very good question. But there's so many factors that come into it, right? I don't want to give like an half-assed answer to this. But it's really tricky because it largely depends on the location. Because there are mid-level 3D artists in Spain that I've seen the numbers from that are just like horrendously low. Or there are numbers that you see from the US, for example, compared to the European standards that seem like excessively high. But then you compare it with the cost of living, you take all those other factors into account. That it makes it a tricky answer, and like a tricky question to answer. Because at the end of the day, this sounds like such a cop out, right? Like a good salary for you just depends on what you're comfortable with. Because I truly think that there are some people that are going to see that number grow year over year and never going to be happy. That are going to see a number and they are going to do their own calculation and just be like, okay, it's good enough for me. Like this is definitely something that I'm happy about. What would be a good salary for a mid-level 3D artist? and a senior. Yeah, man. I don't know. It's a good question. Because I kind of... yeah, I was thinking about the range too. But then what I'm currently looking at for like a mid-level 3D artist, leaving the US out of it. Yeah, definitely, because then the numbers are not going to make sense. So if we're talking about European standards, 30 to 40k a year, that is probably like the stuff that I've seen floating about for like a good salary for like a mid-level 3D artist. In general, right? Yeah, even European, like Eastern European, is a lot of difference for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I would say like 30 to 40k. That's probably the range that I would say for like a mid, maybe a bit higher if we really wanna push it, or if we want to make it a little bit more feasible in multiple locations, right? Because say that number is not going to apply if you want to move to London. That's not going to work. Like if you earn 30k and you're moving to London, well, see, that's the thing. But it also depends on the kind of company too, right? It's the location, it's the company. Because some companies were they will probably pay you higher, but they won't have the same job security as other companies that pay lower. So that is another factor that you need to factor into it. Job security is another big one, and just like the training on the job is another big one. You would need at least 30k per year. Yeah, exactly. Like at least. So my range would like the range that I said would not be livable in London. Well, I would not do it. Are you drinking cocoa? No, I'm drinking tea. I do drink cocoa though. Hot cocoa at the evening. Man, I really wish that I could give you like a good range for this. Because the same thing happens, right? Like I'm basing this on the stuff that I've seen and the stuff that I'm currently working with, right? Like with this range. But then you see other people in the chat, like Big Seagull. Damn, I'm doing really great for myself. Yeah. Probably works at a company that pays better wages then. Or is just surrounded by people that have an higher average. Yeah, Glassdoor is always there. Just that's also my means of just looking at salaries. Are you willing to tell us what you started out with? Yeah, I started on 17k in Cambridge. I mentioned this before on Twitter, so this is not something that I'm really that afraid of sharing. But this was also during my internship, so take that into account. This was not even a graduate position yet. This was during my internship that I was doing. This was my internship that I was doing at what time was it? 6 years ago now? 2014, 2015, something like that. Must be something like that, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. Because you brought up a good point, Fran. I find that people working at a similar level have a very different salary in the UK. So I want to know why. Yeah. It might also be because some people are just way better at negotiation. That's like a big factor in it too. Like a company might get away with offering person X 30k and they'll be happy with it, but they might offer person Y 30k and they're like, no, I'm looking for like 45. And then they might push it up to 40 and they're coming in at the same level. It's just because one person never pushes and is like happy that he's there, and then the other one is just like, no, I want more than this, and just ask for more. So that's another big factor. It's a really good question. It's a really good question because I keep thinking about this myself as well. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Also, it's not like you only get a raise via promotion. That's why we also still have the standard of like if you want to get paid more, you have to move companies. That is still like a stigma that exists in the games industry, right? And that is still very real. Because I know some people that just moved and got like a big raise. Oh shit, you're here live. Yeah, that's true. But I think we get carried away, right, with just looking at this from like a game dev lens. This is our world. But it's definitely. But I think it's more the willingness of people wanting to go to a different company. That's the big difference. Because like if you look at our parents' generation, it was, well, in my case, it was more the case of, even with all my friends, like most of them have only moved like companies once, I think. Some of them are still in the same company where they began. Yeah. I would say the most important skills for salary negotiations is definitely the negotiation itself, right? But it's also trying to be in the know of the numbers that are out there. And that is probably the most trickiest thing. Honestly, trying to find like reliable, good numbers where you can base your numbers on, because you're always walking this fine balance of you negotiating and being denied like a company that you really want to work for example, because you don't want to push it so far that they just outright deny you, right? Because that's like still a thing that's playing in a lot of people's minds. And I think that's also why a lot of people are hesitant to just ask for more. But yeah, a really, really good question. 12 years in the same company. Yeah, but you're cheating. You're getting out really soon. Just sometimes you just need to apply for stuff, man. Go for it. Do it. Next question from Pame Dominguez. Do companies usually have training programs for employees? Uh, in general, yeah. Like the two companies that I've worked at have really, really good like training programs, or like have really good support. I mean, within Ubisoft, like there's so much talent and so many people just sharing the stuff that they're doing and like sharing knowledge, that is probably the biggest thing that you get at a company like Ubisoft. There's there's a lot of good stuff about it. It always makes it so interesting, right? Just having these training programs. And I think I think there's also sometimes there's also downtime involved with a project, right? So at the end of the project, when the production is done, there might be a little bit of downtime for especially environment artists to just uh, train skills, um, and do all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I'm generalizing here. Sometimes you might be in a position where you're just moving from production to production. Again, depends on the company. But usually, I would say yes. They do have like training programs and like tutorials and time set aside. Like, for example, in our studio, we have this concept of TGIF, and it's called Talent Growth Investment Fridays, I think. So what that means is that every Friday afternoon, we get Friday afternoon off. Well, technically off, but it's to improve skills that you're working on. So you could look at new technology that's developing and like try it out yourself. Something that is applicable to you growing your skills that are relevant to the games industry and the work that you're doing. And I've been loving it, honestly. It's really good. Do I speak German? Barely. And how's the experience of living there? It's okay, but we're thinking about in the long run just moving somewhere else. I think it's just like a language barrier and just our unwillingness to really learn German. Like we don't really like the language, so that's why we're not learning it. What makes, in your opinion, a good 3D teacher? From like Mr. Giggles. Um, Good question. If we're talking about if we're talking about schools, right, or anything like that, it's industry experience is the key thing that you need to look at. Oh God, Dutch is better. Well, it's almost the same, and that's mainly why I don't don't really like it. I think. Um, but yeah, what makes you, in your opinion, like a good 3D teacher? So definitely like industry experience for games 3D teachers, right? Like if you have like an environment artist teacher. Um, but there definitely are. And I think this is the thing. There are definitely teachers with experience because 3D schools are new. But there are people that have been in the 3D industry that are becoming teachers or like teach on the side. And I think America is really good with that, where they have people, or like Canada and America, they have people that work in the industry full time do like classes on the side too. And that's probably like the best option that you can get. What makes them good is just most of it honestly is coming down to being in touch with the industry for one, because that's going to give you like the latest updates or like the latest knowledge that you have instead of a person that's not been in the industry for 5 years. Honestly, they might not even know that PBR is like a new thing. Imagine that getting taught by well, that's like an extreme example, right? Or like imagine getting taught by a teacher who doesn't know what PBR is. Yeah. Um, a good knowledge of fundamentals too. I think the fundamentals are more important than all the technical skills. Everyone needs to learn the technical skills, honestly. But if you have a teacher that's really good at explaining and showing off the fundamentals of it, talking about composition, color usage, like shape language, all that kind of stuff for an environment artist is super good. And it's probably more important to learn than the actual technical skills of learning how to bake within Marmoset, for example. Uh, let's have a look. Try to keep up with the chat. But are there teachers with experience because 3D schools are new? For example, we had a couple of teachers who went into the industry for like 2 or 3 years, and then came back to school to teach a little bit, and then now they're back into the industry. Let me see if I can find his portfolio. So this is, I'm gonna link it in the chat. This is, for example, one of my personal teachers that taught me a lot of my environment artwork, to be honest. Well, one of, right? We had like a ton of teachers like that. There were also teachers that went into the industry, and it was always like, you could feel the difference there. It's not that they were bad, but it's just like there's a difference. Like, that industry experience is not something that you can just get, right? You have to live it. Okay, let's go up again. Notion. Oh yeah. I didn't know anyone who uses it. Well, I can at some point maybe give you a tour about my Notion. My Notion is pretty crazy. Such a good program. Let's see, I don't want to miss any. I feel so related with that person. Oh, that's from yeah, the stuff that we were talking about, the castles. I don't feel confident right now with full environments, so I'm more focused on dioramas and props. Yep. It's really good. That's really good. What's your favorite Christmas pastry? Oh god. Let's think. Because I'm not such a sweet tooth. Like, I'm more about all the hearty stuff. Christmas pastry. I don't know. The closest thing that I can get to is just like speculoos, which is not really Christmas. It's more like a Santa Claus kind of thing. Sinterklaas. You put sugar on pasta. Okay, point taken. I mean, shit. Well, we all knew that was coming back, right? Yeah, exactly. That's today. No, I didn't put my shoe though. We were talking about it this morning. Like a shoe with a carrot and like little sugar cubes in it. No, didn't do it. Shit. Favorite Christmas pastry. Let's keep scrolling. When are the emotes coming? We should really do like an emote challenge. What a great question for you. What does it take to become a technical artist? Any resources or portfolios you can recommend? A technical artist has to be in charge of like a lot of things, right? It's game optimization, how you build like automated tools that can optimize stuff for your artists. Could be one. Let's have a look. Because we recently had a technical artist intern at Ubisoft. He's now doing his master's, so he's no longer working with us. But he made a couple of really cool tools. And the stuff that we really liked from him was this thing. So it was really cool to see him going into Horizon Zero Dawn, taking pictures from an actual mesh in that game, then sort of photogrammetrying it and extracting like a base mesh out of the game itself, then modeling on top of that, animating it, and he had like a bunch of different tools that could really help him like quickly, like UV or like organize his scenes and like animate it. So this was like a really good portfolio. And then he also has like some texture plugins that he made. So it's all about like making tools to help the artists do their job better, or help bridge the gap between the artists or the programmers, or like optimization tools that we just mentioned as well. Any resources? That would be an interesting one, because I don't really know of any resources out of the top of my head. I'm gonna make a note of that, and then maybe see if I can dig some up. Talk to the technical artist at our studio. TA resources. Because it's not something that I really look at, right? I'll see if I can find something. I think this is a bit of a tricky question. I know that attention to detail is really important for an artist. Learn to see more. How do you compare yourself from your first pieces to the new ones in terms of detailing and quality? How do you think you did that? Or could you give me any advice to improve that, to learn to see more? The biggest thing, honestly, there is photography. Really helped me a lot in terms of composition, how to use lighting, and every environment artist to just get into photography and like try to get into like how to use the rule of thirds, like how to set up like good lighting, what makes lighting interesting for you, and how to extract like good compositions. There's good compositions all around us, we just don't really look at it. And it's once you start training your eye to see those compositions that you can reverse engineer that and put that into your environment art. I honestly learn a lot from photography. Like even when I'm just doing it for fun, right? But I know that I'm training myself. And it's probably the thing I do the most when we go on vacation. I take like hundreds to thousands of pictures a day, or like during the vacation. And that's also why I bought this camera too. Because it's something that I'm really interested into growing more. And when it just comes to attention to detail, a lot of it is also dependent on the references that you look up. Having really good references, knowing how to find references, that's also a really good example for it. So yeah, when it comes to looking up references, you really know how to. What I usually do is I look up like the most generalized thing that I can see, or that I think of, right? There was an example from like these green lamps that someone was making, but he couldn't really find like what they were. So I just took like the first thing that came into my mind was like green vintage lamps. And then from that, I start looking for a picture that has like the metadata of like what the actual thing is. And there were like enamel shades at that point. And then I just used that again in like my second search to look for enamel shades. And then you start pinpointing like these really old vintage shops that like refurbish them. And that's where you get the best reference. Because there you get like all the tiny, like the really high quality pictures with just like all the nice detail in it. And that is a big part of like seeing detail, is knowing how to look for it. When it comes to my personal work, I don't think I am the best in looking for attention to detail, because I'm always focused on the bigger picture. I'm always focused on like how to use light, how to use the atmosphere, how to use the mood, and like my textures and my models, even though I really enjoy doing them all myself, right, are definitely not the best. Honestly, I keep saying this, like there's way better people that can make like way better looking stuff than me. It's just the way that I put everything together is that's where I love to focus on. But I've definitely seen like in terms of detailing and quality, in the beginning I was always rushing. Like when I think back to my student days, I was always rushing stuff because I was just trying to get stuff in really quickly. And now I do have like more patience with it. I do have like better references to support what I'm doing. So hope that helps. But yeah, man, photography was like a big game changer, honestly. When we're focusing on like the bigger stuff, like the composition, color usage and all that, it's that's my highest recommendation, honestly, to just start going out in photography. Do some photography on the side. Like when you explore new places, take a camera with you. I mean, we all have like these highly sophisticated cameras on our phones right now, so you might as well make use of it. When Coco? Probably never. It's gonna be like a forever battle. Let's scroll through here. Arrange. We answered that. That was most yeah, no worries. Always happy to help. Let's see. Where did we stop? This is all talking about the salary. Oh, you spoke with a Ubisoft art director of Limited Spa, and he recommended you to keep doing personal work and to develop those skills. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. This is the thing that I always look for if we have people that are applying to our studio. This is honestly where I go to first, like if they do personal work, because that's where you can see that they really what they really are passionate about and what they really want to do. Some schools don't really have the luxury of that extra time to allow you to do personal work, right? But still, like there's some good examples out there for people that just they finished the school assignment, but then they were still like, it's not right yet, and then they took it into their own time and like really upped the quality of it. Warum nicht? Guten Tag. I barely know any German, but I do know Ich bin ein Berliner. Will that do? Yeah, that's basically my level of German too. It's really difficult to learn. Yeah, and our company even offers like German classes, right? But it's just if I want to learn German, I'm not really interested in like all the theoretical stuff. I just want to learn it on the fly. And that's sort of what I was doing before, just going to like restaurants, like always trying to talk German and not like instantly reverting to English most of the time. What university have you studied at in the UK? No, so I come from Belgium, and I'll look up the link for my university. It's a really good one. I do recommend it. So here you go. That's the link for the university. It's yeah, it is really good. I do recommend it. It was intense because it wasn't focused on like one thing, right? So I have, outside of environment art, I know I also know a bit of scripting, I also know animation, I also know character art, I also know C++ programming. There's like a bunch of stuff that I don't know, well, that I know and that I don't use on like a daily basis, but at least I have an understanding of it. And that makes it more applicable when I'm talking to, for instance, programmers or like animators from the studio, where I can understand the stuff that they're saying. So that really helped us in that university. Do you think you get sugar or coal? Probably sugar. I mean, I didn't come out an entire year, right? So There's nothing bad that I could have done, even if I wanted to. Uh-oh, second question following that. Do you recommend going to schools to study 3D? Knowing all the resources that you can find online? Actually, we recently did like a YouTube video about that. Let me go to Beyond Extend. Let's click on this. Okay. We did a podcast episode. There we go. That's the link. Do you recommend going to schools to study 3D, knowing all the resources that you can find online? I'm not talking only about free stuff, but paid courses like CGMA or mentorships. Yeah. It depends on where you come from, right? Like if you're like me and you grew up in Belgium and the school is really affordable, because we pay for that school, which was really good and which I recommend, we paid 1,000 a year back then. I don't know if it changed right now. I don't think it did. But that's obviously, I think it's definitely without the PC, but I think some of the material, like the course material, is already in there, like some licenses and stuff. So if you're paying that price for like an entire year, and I would definitely recommend it. It becomes trickier if you have to pay like 10k, 15k a year, where if you have to go in depth, then I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what I would do, honestly. I've been thinking about this because I hear a lot of people talking about that they're still paying off the debt. But I would love to say that I wouldn't do it, but it's hard to tell. Yeah, exactly. Like almost 10k a year. That is, to me, from looking at where I came from and like what I paid for my school, that is just ridiculous. That's like a ridiculous amount of money. And obviously you get a student loan, but that's how the whole system is set up, right? In the UK. So it's a difference. It's a difference. At that price, I would definitely have a look around mentorships and see what they can offer you. But I would not just stop there. I would already start investing my own time in like modeling super simple shit. Like start modeling with super simple props and get like a basic knowledge of 3D modeling, that at least you have something to go into a mentorship, because most mentorships are not based around like getting you from like all the way to zero. You have to have like a basis understanding of like a lot of the software. So yeah, that's the thing. You have to have a basis, and for some people, they might struggle the most with getting from that totally what is it? Total point zero. Like you know absolutely nothing. And then to get that basis understanding in like all the tools that you need to know, like some people get lost in where to start, and that's where schools come in. Because they do teach you to go from all the way to zero to get you to that, to like a job opportunity, right? So it is tricky if you have like previous experience. Like I would definitely stick with mentorships. If you don't, start looking around, see what you think works best for you. Yes, I agree with like finding good tutorials on YouTube. But imagine if you don't know anything about modeling, like nothing. You don't know where to start. Like, what are you gonna look for? How do you know what a good tutorial is? I think a lot of people struggle with that fact. where they just start consuming content and then they don't know what they're actually working towards. For example, you could find modeling tutorials in Maya that are catered towards movies where everything is super high poly, but say you want to work in games, but you don't know what tutorial is for at that moment. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think it's a with YouTube, it's a blessing and a curse. Yeah. I would say it's less frequent with paid content. Hopefully. I haven't been so up to date with paid content. But with blessing, what I mean with the blessing and the curse with YouTube is just that there's so much out there, and that a lot of people get overwhelmed by just the enormity of all that's out there. What do you mean it's not? It's not for paid content, you mean? Yeah. Anyway, it's really tough, that question. Let's have a look, right? But I do know that the CGMA courses are really good. Mentorships are, from what I've heard, really good as well. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's what you get, right? When people can start. Well, when people start asking for the content that they create, and yeah, it's interesting. When people start asking money for content that they create, people are gonna have this inherent perception of like, this is paid content, so this must be better. Where well, yeah, it's kind of weird like that. It's not really helping anyone because you're damaging your own brand, right? From that perspective, and you're also damaging like the opportunities. Yeah, you are more cautious because you pay for it. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. Having taken a lot of CGMA courses, I can only recommend it. Yeah, I think most of my information actually comes from you, Maha. I mean, I've also seen other people take it within Ubisoft, even like seniors within Ubisoft that take the courses and are really happy with it. So I think CGMA, I can recommend that one without ever taking a CGMA course myself. I'm thinking about it though. I found a free mentorship program from Into Games website. Okay. Didn't go to any school to learn, just from online resources and this kind of course, and I regret nothing. I feel like I save £1,000. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I would say if you have the choice and if they're both the same price, then, well, they're obviously not in most cases, right? Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say too. Like, if you have that personal connection with the mentor, that's always going to be better. It's always going to be better for you, for your growth as well. $34K in depth, and I've learned more about environment art after graduating. Yeah. Honestly, that's the thing. Like, I learned a lot in school, right? Like, I had a really good school and I recommend it. But even then, like, after school, that's when I really started to learn. But yeah, you need to get into it, right? Like, you need to get into the industry to get to that point. And that's probably the trickiest part for a lot of people. Since I graduated, I can devote so much more time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 100% agree. Like tech art is still underrepresented, but in high demand. 100%. But yeah, I'll see if I can find some more resources or on where you can start looking. Have you tried modeling or sculpting in VR? No, I haven't. I haven't done anything in VR. I'm not too keen on just sculpting in VR just yet. And like the amount of sculpting that I do is like fairly small, so I haven't seen any benefit of it. Plus it's still somewhat on the expensive side. So I'll keep waiting. I'll keep waiting until they improve it and I can just wait. I would like there to be an option where you start at the very bottom at a company and then work your way up instead of going to school. Oh god, yeah, this goes into like a conscientious topic, right? Where a lot of people perceive QA to be that, even though it's not. But a lot of people still perceive QA as not a sustainable long-term career. And that's where we kind of need to break the stigma. Because like honestly, without QA, I would be, pardon my French, but fucked a lot of the time. And yeah, a lot of people don't realize that QA is like a valuable career path too. Yeah. I don't know. Like I don't think that would be good though. Like honestly, like if you look at we went to like a VFX company in London like 6 years back, and people were really happy to just run coffee for other people, even though they went to like my university, like studied for 4 years to do like VFX, and then the first year of them getting into the industry were just running coffee for other people. It's like, what? It just didn't make sense to me. How can a person create a resume when they have no degree or relevant work experience? I hear a lot portfolio is king, CV doesn't matter, but I'm guessing you have to get to past the HR stage first before you get to know people who understand more what they're looking at. Not really. Oh, Hamish, thanks so much for joining, man. And have a nice night. I would say 100% though, portfolio is king. When I'm gonna look at it through the lens from our studio, right? When we look at artists, most of the artists come from other artists within the team that they know or that they put forward or that they just seen on ArtStation and they're like, look, this person is looking for a job. Let's reach out to them. So a lot of that stuff, especially on the artist side, happens like that. Hey, Fran. Thanks for joining. Have a nice Sunday. So yeah, a lot of stuff happens like that, where it's just artists discovering others' art and then forwarding them to the studio internally. There are still some more traditional ways how to get in, right? Like if you do like an application for an environment artist, you might have to go through HR first. But there might also be like an internal system where all the applications that come in get dispersed between like all the artists, and then they still get to see the art before HR makes just like a decision based on your CV. At least that's my perception. It could be wrong for like a lot of American studios. I don't know about that. I wish I knew about mentorships before spending all the money on a degree. Yeah, especially when you're paying so much for it in some cases. Depends on where you want to work, because a degree with uni. Yeah, that is also a really good point from Big Seagull. Like a degree will definitely help you. Like if you have a bachelor degree, it will help you get to companies outside of Europe or within Europe. Like if you're looking to work like really internationally, that piece of paper is definitely gonna help, 100%. Not to get too political, but I imagine, imagine being a country and deciding to bankrupt your citizens in their 20s when all they want to do is advanced education. Well, money needs to keep flowing, I guess. Yeah, don't want to get too political about that too. Also for paid content. The thing I hate about YouTube is that you'll find one video recommending one thing and then another recommending another that contradicts. Yeah, it's really tough. I think, yeah. That's where like a curated list of tutorials would be really good, actually. I know that some people brought it up already with like Beyond Extent. That could be like a really interesting thing that we could look into. And I'm thinking about it. Because that would be interesting. Just focus on like the high quality content. But that would take a lot of time too. You do offer mentorships over Patreon as well, don't you? Yeah, I wouldn't call them mentorships, honestly, because it is more like a monthly checkup. It's not like a weekly thing where you really work tightly together with the person itself. So for me, I'm thinking about maybe doing mentorships at some point, like really full-on mentorships. But I feel like I need to prepare like a course or something else for that, or like a bunch of tutorials that can help you with some of the more generalistic stuff. So that's why I don't offer full mentorships at this point. And this is also why I'm doing Twitch right now, and also thinking about just getting better at talking to the camera and talking to other people that are looking at me. It's just to get into the habit of talking to the camera and just being like that, and like minimizing the editing time, basically. CGMA is good, but I prefer mentor stuff. Yep. Talked about this. How do you feel about pirating software? Because it's a lot of money if you pay for Adobe programs, Substance programs, 3D software. Well, I feel pirating is shit, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do, right? I can't recommend it because I've been on the other end of like people pirating my my asset packages, and it literally cost me like a significant chunk of my income. So I will never recommend it. But that's also why the subscriptions, or at least if you're a student, like a lot of that stuff is on educational licenses. So try educational licenses first. Right, made a good series of videos. Yeah, those are good. I watched those. With school, you also learn how to network. Just use Blender. Blender! Yeah. I know a lot of people that started out in QA and are now in the manager branch of their company. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, it's me, Ryan. I always read it at it's Marion for some reason. Yeah, Jonathan from our Discord. The Dynasty website has a list of tutorials, but it's a little bit outdated. Yeah, I think Do they have it on the website? And they also have like a Notion page that has like a ton of good resources. So I would recommend that one too. Okay, cool. It's hard to find a job as a QA too. Yeah, competition is getting competition is getting more fierce and fierce every year. Yeah. It's crazy how fierce the competition became in the last couple of years, honestly. All right, awesome. I think I went through the entire chat. This is awesome. Thanks so much for all the questions. Really appreciate it. We've been going for an hour and a half too. So I might just stop this episode here. I like this little chat. Try to condense them a little bit. So again, thanks everyone for the questions. And if you have any questions, feel free to, if you're a part of the community, feel free to drop it in the AMA questions chat. Or just post it next time. I'll be here every Sunday at the same time. And then you can just ask questions there today. Or like that day. So yeah, thanks everyone for being here. Going to sleep. Yeah, thanks for being here, Ryan. I appreciate it. Crazy time zones. No worries, everyone. Thanks everyone for joining. It was pretty awesome today. So have a nice Sunday. See ya.